Hello, all you nosy people out there. Welcome to my bookshelf. Today, in the spirit of Halloween, I am going to go over all the horror or scary stories on my shelves. As you can see by this stack, I don't like horror. Most of these books I haven't read, I have only read for school, or, in a rare moment, have actually liked enough to keep on my shelf. I am the textbook definition of a wimp, and do not want to have a library full of books that'll keep me looking under my bed at night or send a shiver down my spine while walking down the hall. I don't even like Disney ghosts. The Haunted Mansion at any park. I hate it. I will not be writing. I won't even go into the gift shop, that's how much of a wimp I am. Odd, because I really like the Sixth Sense movie a lot, actually. Anyways, as I go through these books, maybe one will catch your eye and you'll have a spooky new read to finish out the month. Please let me know your thoughts on the books I discussed today in the comments section and why I should or shouldn't read these creepy tales. Without further ado, let's begin. First is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I got this book while I was in college, naively believing that I could be an IT major. I was writing a space opera at the time that used a lot of inspiration from classic monsters like vampires, werewolves, and ghosts. No, it is not done yet, and I've abandoned the project for the time being. I figured since I was basing this story so much on classic monsters, I should probably read some classic literature so I could accurately reference the material of the book. All this while I was an IT major. That's the really scary bit of this video right here. I should have seen my English major tendencies right then and there. Anyway, I have read only one chapter of this book and even marked it up a bit for the research of the story. Sadly, I got bored reading it and didn't really follow what the main character was talking about. It reads as journal entries to begin with, and at the time of picking up this book, I was not vibing with the style. I'm still going to keep this book on my shelf though. I want to get to the part where there's actual vampires in the story. I will not be defeated by this book so easily, gosh darn it. Have you guys tried reading Dracula before? What did you guys think of it? Did you get bored like I did and shelf it for later too? Maybe if enough people show interest, we could make a video series of book club-like videos where we go through the book together. Would you be interested in that? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Dracula before and are curious about reading it. I can't say that for the next book, though. The Witch's Boy by Kelly Barnhill. I know nothing about this book whatsoever. I don't even know if it's scary or not, that's how much I don't know about this book. I was only going off of cover vibes for the book, which looks a little scary, I suppose. And witches! Witches are spooky. I picked up this book because it was on a reading list for one of my classes in college. And then I dropped the class and was left over with a bunch of middle grade books that I wasn't going to read anytime soon. But I kept this one, so maybe I'll get to it? Maybe. Next! Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This was a doozy of a book. I did not finish this book, but I read a majority of it for college, and oh boy does it get scary out of nowhere. Jane Eyre is a story about an unfortunate lady growing up in an unfortunate world. The book is sad and depressing to begin with, scary and weird in the middle, and then, well, I don't know how it ends because I didn't get that far. Let me read from the back of the book that puts it so much more eloquently than I can. A banquet of food for thought, this many-faceted tale invites a splendid variety of interpretations. The heroine's insistence upon emotional equality with her lover suggests a feminist viewpoint, while her solitary status invokes a consideration of the problems of growing up as a social outsider. Some regard Jane's attempts to reconcile for her need for love with her search for moral rectitude as the story's primary message, and lovers of Gothic romance find the tale's social and religious aspects secondary to its gripping elements of mystery and horror. In translation, it's a spooky, scary love story that has been grounded into dust by scholars who want to study it. If you're into reading about red flags, you should read it. I might just hang onto it and sneak a peek at the last chapter or two to see what happens between Mr. Love Interest and Jane. I don't care what you say. The Giver by Lois Lowry is scary. This is a sci-fi book about a society, as most sci-fi books I've heard about are. This society has all these rules, everyone is weirdly unfeeling and cold, and the only person in the world who holds and remembers all the world's history is a man known as the Giver. If you've seen the movie is nothing like the book. For one, the main character is like 12 and not 21. People in Hollywood must be dyslexic with numbers like I am. Most of you will know this from reading it in middle school, high school, or otherwise. I was introduced to it in college for a children's book class, and boy, I don't think children under the age of 14 should be reading this thing. It's got some very dark themes to it that only a very mature kid should be looking into. For those who have read this book, you know which scene is the scary one, and the one that would have scarred me for life had I been introduced to this book in my early stages of life. This book has actually been part of the list of banned books for forever ago, it being on the top 100 most banned books of all time. It's banned in Florida, where I live, so... maybe I should keep quiet about having a copy on my shelf. Whether or not this book should be banned is another issue completely. I'm of the mind that it shouldn't be banned just because it deals with heavy topics, but that's another video for another day. Do I recommend this book? Well, no. I'm not satisfied with unresolved endings like this book has. That's a fairly common thing to find in science fiction, though, so if you're into that, I'd recommend the book to you specifically. I'll keep it on my shelf, if only to say that I have one of the most banned books in America on my shelf, but I don't see myself picking it up anytime soon. Gotta protect those banned books, right? Just like how the Giver protects all the memories of humankind, the good and the bad. You just won't see me recommending this to kids anytime soon. Back to the classics with Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Once again, I have not read this book. It is amazing how many classes you can get by in an English degree without actually reading anything, but the first few lines of the reading assignment. If you don't know the story of Frankenstein by now, you have never stepped outside your house on Halloween, my friend. But to spare you from judgmental eyes at the next Halloween party you go to, Frankenstein is about a man called Victor Frankenstein, who creates a monster out of the body parts of dead people, bringing it to life just because he can. Then he neglects his creation and wonders why it wants to kill him and everyone he associates with. True story, that's what happens. The only reason I am keeping this book to read later is because of the memes I heard while in my college class. They made fun of Victor for being a sexist, narcissistic moron, and everyone in my class was excited to see how he got his comeuppance. It really made me a bit salty that I chose not to read this story while I had the chance. Not enough to actually read the book while in college, mind you. I already had too much on my plate to actually give the book any time to read. College is the scariest time to read a book at all, really. Speaking of reading books for school, King Lear by William Shakespeare. This is by far the least scary of all of Shakespeare's tragedies, that prize going to Macbeth. However, it's on my shelf, and the falling of a kingdom can be scary in some people's eyes. Besides, King Lear himself goes mad in this book, which, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little more funny than scary in my opinion. I'm going to keep the book on my shelf just because I have a love for Shakespearean plays in my collection. I wouldn't recommend you read it, as I'm of the firm belief that plays are meant to be watched, not purely read. Honestly, I'm not sure why I put this book in here. Maybe I'll go see a showing of it and see if it actually deserves to be included in my scary book collection or not. With that, though, let's go on to the last scary book, which has actually become one of my most favorite books ever. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. You didn't think I'd actually do a scary book video without mentioning Neil Gaiman, did you? If you did, I mean, you're not far off actually. This is the first and only book I've read of his. I've only seen the Coraline movie before, and that was enough for me. The Graveyard Book, as said before, is one of my favorite books of all time. And this coming from the girl who said she wouldn't step foot into the Haunted Mansion at Disney World. I mean, the story begins with a serial killer killing an entire family. Well, almost an entire family. This story has ghosts, demons, vampires, werewolves, and a fantastic British wit that I love so much. Yes, it can get scary, and yes, it had my skin crawling at times. However, the story at its heart is just so lovable and wholesome that I can look past my fears and really enjoy this great story. I'll save my full recommendation for the video I'm gonna do on it later, but as it stands, I would say that everyone should read this book. I know I will be reading it again just as soon as I get through my TBR. And that is that. These are the only scary books that I have on my shelf right now. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please consider giving a like and sharing the video to a friend using the buttons down below. Did any of these reads catch your eye? Or perhaps you have a recommendation for a spooky book that I might like? Please leave your excitement towards a book you love down below in the comments. I'll have one more spooky video coming out this month, so if you don't want to miss it, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween! Now, to put all these books away, hey? Huh. Where'd they go? Ah!